The experiment began on a frigid Monday morning with nothing but the clothes on my back. I faced a desperate need to navigate the concrete labyrinth of the city without a scent. My objective was simple yet daunting: survive for 30 days relying entirely on my own resourcefulness. I sought to utilize community kindness and the overlooked abundance of our vast urban life. The first week was a brutal lesson in humility as I navigated complex social hierarchies. I moved through public spaces, learning to identify which bakeries discarded their surplus daily goods. I searched for which parks offered the most shelter from the biting, relentless winter wind. Hunger became a constant, dull companion, gnawing at my resolve throughout the long, cold days. It forced me to abandon my pride and engage with strangers on the busy streets. These strangers often viewed me with deep suspicion, keeping their distance as I approached them. Yet, amidst the isolation, I discovered hidden networks of mutual aid operating in the shadows. I found the surprising generosity of those who had very little to give themselves daily. This discovery marked the beginning of a profound transformation in my perception of human value. I began to see the city not as a cold machine, but as a community. Every interaction became a lesson, teaching me how to bridge the gap between two worlds. I learned to read the subtle cues of the city, finding warmth in unexpected places. The biting wind no longer felt like an enemy, but a challenge to be overcome. I navigated the alleys, finding small treasures that others had long ago deemed as useless. My perspective shifted as I realized that survival was an art form requiring intense focus. The social hierarchies I once ignored now became the very map of my daily existence. I watched the city wake up, a symphony of movement that I was now part of. Each day brought a new struggle, yet each day also brought a new small victory. I learned to listen to the rhythm of the streets, finding patterns in the chaos. The bakeries were my primary source, their discarded bread a feast for my weary soul. I felt the weight of my empty pockets, but my mind was becoming increasingly full. The suspicion of strangers slowly melted into curiosity as they saw my persistent, quiet efforts. I shared stories with those who had nothing, finding common ground in our shared struggle. These connections were more valuable than any currency I had ever held in my hands. I was learning to survive, but more importantly, I was learning to truly live again. The city was a labyrinth, but I was finally beginning to find my way through. Morning light filtered through the skyscrapers, casting long, sharp shadows across the cold pavement. I tightened my thin jacket, feeling the sharp bite of the wind against my skin. My stomach growled in protest, a persistent reminder of the hunger that defined my days. I walked past bustling cafes, inhaling the scent of roasted coffee and fresh, warm pastries. The contrast between their comfort and my reality was a chasm I had to cross. I scanned the faces of passers-by, searching for a flicker of empathy or simple recognition. Most eyes remained glued to screens, shielding their owners from the harshness of the street. I practiced the art of the polite approach, keeping my posture open and my voice steady. Small rejections stung, yet they were necessary steps in refining my approach to human connection. I found a quiet corner near a subway entrance, observing the frantic pace of commuters. Their movements were predictable, a dance of efficiency that I was slowly learning to mirror. I discovered that patience was a currency far more valuable than the coins I lacked. By mid-afternoon, the city's noise softened into a rhythmic hum that lulled my anxious mind. I sat on a weathered bench, watching the pigeons fight over crumbs near the fountain. Their struggle mirrored my own, a primal fight for sustenance in an unforgiving concrete world. I realized that my survival depended on my ability to blend into this urban landscape. I became a ghost in the machine, moving through crowds without leaving a single trace. The city began to reveal its secrets, showing me where the heat vents were located. I mapped out the public libraries, finding sanctuary in the warmth of their quiet aisles. Books became my companions, offering escape from the biting reality of my 30-day challenge. I felt a strange sense of liberation in shedding the weight of material possession. My needs were distilled to the absolute basics: shelter, water, and the kindness of others. Every day was a test of endurance, pushing me to the edge of my physical limits. Yet, in that exhaustion, I found a clarity I had never experienced in my life. I was no longer defined by what I owned, but by how I survived. The city, once a source of fear, had become a teacher of profound, silent lessons. I looked toward the horizon, where the setting sun painted the buildings in gold. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but I was ready to face them with resolve. My journey was far from over, but I had already found a new purpose. I stood up, brushed the dust from my clothes, and walked into the coming night. Having survived the initial week of hardship, I entered the second half of the month. The raw desperation of those early days began to fade into a strange, heightened clarity. This was a clarity that only comes from stripping away the safety net of currency. I became an expert in urban foraging, scanning alleyways for discarded but perfectly edible treasures. Time management became my most essential tool, dictating every movement through the sprawling city streets. I learned to trade simple labor for warm meals, offering my hands to local kitchens. Finding creative ways to maintain personal hygiene became a daily, complex puzzle to be solved. I navigated a world designed for paying customers while possessing absolutely nothing in my pockets. The psychological toll of being rendered invisible by society was, at times, truly immense. Yet, this heavy burden was countered by the deep, visceral satisfaction of solving survival problems. I felt a strange pride in navigating the concrete maze without a single credit card. Each day brought new challenges that required me to think differently about my basic needs. I learned which public fountains were reliable and which libraries offered warmth during the afternoon. My senses grew sharper, attuned to the rhythms of the city and its hidden currents. I began to see the city not as a cold machine, but as a living organism. The people I encountered were no longer just strangers, but participants in a shared struggle. By the 30th day, I stood in the center of the bustling city square. I was physically depleted, my body aching from weeks of relentless movement and limited rest. My clothes were worn thin, and my face bore the marks of the harsh weather. Yet, I possessed a wealth of insight that no amount of money could ever purchase. The experiment concluded not with a loud celebration of material wealth or financial success. Instead, it ended with a quiet, profound realization about the nature of our modern existence. The city was not just a machine of commerce, built only for buying and selling. It was a living, breathing ecosystem of human interdependence that I finally understood so well. I had learned to navigate the complex social fabric that binds us all together tightly. The experiment was over, but the transformation within me had only just begun to bloom. I looked at the passing crowds, seeing the faces of those who helped me survive. Every interaction had been a lesson in humanity, teaching me the true value of connection. I walked away from the square, carrying the weight of this new, invaluable perspective forward. The $0 experiment had changed my life in ways I never could have imagined. Every morning, I woke up before the sun, watching the city slowly stir to life. The cold pavement had become my bed, teaching me resilience against the biting night air. I watched the commuters rush past, their lives defined by schedules and digital bank balances. My own schedule was dictated by the rising sun and the availability of public resources. I found beauty in the smallest things, like a warm ray of light hitting brick. Hunger was a constant companion, yet it sharpened my focus on the immediate present moment. I discovered that generosity often hides in the shadows, waiting for those who truly need. A baker once handed me a loaf of day-old bread with a knowing, silent nod. That single interaction felt more valuable than any transaction I had ever completed before then. I realized that money often acts as a barrier, preventing genuine human interaction from occurring. Without that barrier, I was forced to be vulnerable, open, and entirely honest with others. The city revealed its secrets to me, showing me paths that only the penniless know. I walked miles each day, my boots wearing down against the unforgiving, hard concrete sidewalks. My legs grew strong, carrying the weight of my experiences across the vast urban landscape. I observed the wealthy and the destitute, noting how similar our basic human needs are. We all seek warmth, food, and a sense of belonging within this massive, complex structure. I felt a deep connection to the history etched into the old buildings around me. The city became a classroom, and every day provided a new, challenging, and vital lesson. I learned to listen more than I spoke, observing the subtle cues of human behavior. Silence became my refuge, allowing me to process the intensity of my daily survival efforts. I found peace in the quiet corners of public parks, away from the loud noise. The transition from being a consumer to an observer was both jarring and deeply enlightening. I felt liberated from the constant pressure to acquire, to spend, and to always consume. My mind cleared, shedding the clutter of material desires that once defined my daily life. I understood now that true wealth is found in the richness of our shared experiences. The city square felt different now, as if I were seeing it for the first. I breathed in the cool air, feeling a profound sense of gratitude for this journey. The struggle had been difficult, yet it was the most rewarding experience of my life. I stood tall, ready to re-enter the world with a heart full of new wisdom. My 30-day journey had ended, but the lessons learned would last for a lifetime.